So I'm starting a bike tour called Devon Bykes, which is obviously a play on words on my last name, Devon Dykes. And since I've lived in New Orleans, I've really wanted to do an exploration of all the different crimes that have happened here because it is quite a lot. So there's a lot of options as far as what to provide information about. And the first one I wanted to start off with is the Louisiana Pizza Kitchen murders. This was a story that I read about a few years ago, and it's located in the French Quarter, right next to the French Market, which is located right behind me. Very different compared to what's usually going on. It's usually filled with people. I know that I really just come down here to get a drink at Organic Banana. But since all of this stuff is going on with the virus, it's pretty deserted, which is kind of cool for bikers, but ready for things to get back to normal. So I thought this would be a really good opportunity to go ahead and start with a bike tour. And like I said, first episode is going to be about the Louisiana Pizza Kitchen murders, so I hope you look forward to listening to it. Okay, so right across the street is the location of the Louisiana Pizza Kitchen. It is still a restaurant today. I want to say I've been there once before. It's been a really long time. I don't remember it, so I do need to go back. It's not open right now, or I would definitely support the business and get some pizza. And if you know me, you know how much I am addicted to pizza. So it looks like it's closed right now. Today it's kind of cloudy, sunny. Again, really quiet because of everything that's going on, but it really helps set the tone of this story. So this crime happened in 1996, and it actually happened in December, so not too long ago. How it started off with, 4 employees were coming in to open up the restaurant, and they were getting everything set up at 10 a.m., and everything seemed, very normal. This is a very heavy traffic area with people normally. Today it's not, but if you've ever come down here, if you have ever been to the French Market or French Quarter, you know how high traffic it is. And so you really don't expect anything to happen like robbery, crime, murder, especially at 10 a.m. Usually when you see crimes take place in the French Quarter, they're typically after 1 a.m. So this was very unusual from what I know. But again, I'm still learning about all the crimes that have happened in New Orleans. Even now, with there not being many people, I still feel really safe, knock on wood. The Frenchman Street is towards that direction, and sometimes it can get a little sketchy, but, nothing too scary. So anyway, going back to the story, 4 employees were getting ready to open. They're performing chores, routines. Then 3 men show up, and one of them had actually just recently been employed at Louisiana Pizza Kitchen as a dishwasher. So they recognized him. Again, very comfortable, I'm assuming, with him. And 2 other guys were his friends. New Orleans is a very relaxed atmosphere. They don't call it the Big Easy for nothing. You just aren't always on edge. And so one of them is, her name's Kara. She's getting them a drink. I'm assuming it was a soda because in the case report, it was a cold drink, which in New Orleans they call sodas or Cokes cold drinks. I'll have to look in more to the history of that. But anyway, I doubt they were drinking alcohol, but then again, it's New Orleans, so very, anything's possible, I guess. So anyway, she's talking to him about the schedule because the dishwasher, he was wanting to check on the schedule. He had called in sick the night before. He just started. And at one point, the employee named Devon, he's speaking up. Well, the employee, or one of the men, they call his they call him back here and say, like, hey, I want to show you something. So he goes back there, not thinking anything of it, goes back towards the walk-in refrigerator, and then at that point, the 3 men get the other employees shuffled in and into the walk-in refrigerator, and they are told to get on their knees. And like I mentioned earlier, the female Kara, who happened to be the manager, she was being very nice, being very hospitable. She ends up begging for her life because they see a gun. And one of the men who committed the crime, they had put a potato over the barrel of the gun, I guess to be used as a silencer, because if you were to hear a gunshot in this area, it would be very loud, obvious, So I guess they had to muffle it somehow, and that was just a very impromptu way of doing it, I suppose. So anyway, she's begging for her life, and obviously they're not responding because it is a robbery, but they are going to end up committing a murder. So the next thing Damien remembers is he hears 5 shots, and he was shot in the back of his head. At some point, he wakes up and notices that there are 3 of his employees next to him. There's the 3 guys that came in earlier. They're not anywhere to be found. So he manages to crawl over them, call 911, and let the operator know, look, there's been 4 people that have been shot. We need an ambulance. We need the police here. So they end up showing up, and one of the men is actually not dead yet. It said his name is Michael, and one of the officers heard him gurgling blood. So they get him to Charity Hospital, which Charity Hospital is no longer an operating hospital. It's really just abandoned. I think it was abandoned after Katrina. And so they get him there, but he ends up being dead on arrival. And Damien is the only survivor of the 4, and he manages to pull through. And positive to that is he's able to identify the 3 men. He remembers that the employee, he remembers the first letter, and so he's able to tell the police, go look at the schedule and you should be able to find him. It started with an M. His name ends up being Malcolm Hill. And there was this really cryptic message that police found. It was written on a grease board. It was written on a grease board, and I mean, it kind of makes sense, but not really. So this is what the message was left. It said, "Trip and get flipped like a pancake, thinking this man a fake. Now they bring him flowers to you wake." Which makes it sound, like with that kind of message, it makes it sound like it was something personal. There are not a lot of sources on this crime, so everything I've found so far, it hasn't been that it was anything personal. It just seemed like it was a robbery, obviously gone bad, but very strange that they left that. I don't know if it was to throw anybody off. I don't know if it was the ego of the person who did it, but anyway, they happened to take $2,549.84. It was also known that Kara was the manager, and she was the only person who knew the code to the safe and would be able to get it. And they were shot at close range. So after they're able to identify, the police are able to track down where these men are, and they moved really swiftly. And I think theory of mine is, well, probably this was not a huge story, or something that I asked my mom and dad about and they had not heard of it. And again, there were not a lot of resources on it, so it makes you wonder, like, I guess because they found them so quickly, it just wasn't as heavily publicized, whereas things that are unsolved, they tend to get a lot more light in the media, or attention in the media. And so they find them, and they're able to do some forensic testing on the shoes and clothing, and they happen to find some of the potato splatter that I guess took place after it was used as a silencer, and they were able to make the connections there. And they had a couple of witnesses that were not in the building at the time, but were familiar with the people there, had seen the three men. One of the employees that was coming in at 11, she happened to get to the French Quarter about an hour early, and she went and had breakfast, and she knew where the employees like take their smoke breaks and everything. And she noticed that they weren't out there like they typically would be, and that there were these, she saw two of the three men. And so she thought that was unusual. Something interesting I found from Morning Call paper or article, it said, quote, "When police picked them up, they were playing dominoes like nothing happened." So clearly there was no remorse in what they did. They could have easily just made it a robbery. Instead, it becomes a homicide. Could have been very avoidable. I guess, maybe they didn't want to be identified. Who knows? But anyway, the way that they got away from the crime scene, I read that they saw a casual friend, and he was driving, and they called out to him and said, "Hey, can you give us a ride?" Well, the guy who was driving the car, he didn't know what had just taken place, and so I think he also helped police, that was really surprising to me, because I would think that he was involved just because of the time and place. Like, I guess it's just one of those things, wrong place, wrong time. But as far as I know, he was not involved. In September 1997, this was an article that I read, one of the men was found guilty and sentenced to die by lethal injection on 3 counts of first-degree murder, so the trial took place pretty quickly. That was something that I was researching too, what happened to them. That didn't interest me as much. They were caught, they were obviously involved in the crime, but what I did find really interesting was that one of the victims, his name was Michael, and he was the one that was taken to Charity Hospital and unfortunately died on arrival. But his family was interviewed about him, and he was not from New Orleans originally. He was just a transplant here, and he was actually encouraged by his family not to move here because the crime rate was so bad. Actually did a little bit more digging on that. In the 1990s, it was really bad as far as crime so again, this murder took place in 1996, and apparently in 1994, that was the highest death rate or murder rate in New Orleans modern history. So in 1996, there were 351 murders, 5,700 robberies, and 4,580 assaults, whereas in 2016, there were 174 murders, 1,445 robberies, and 2,093 assaults. As far as why 1994 was the deadliest year, there were 424 murders, and read that reason that a lot of it was so high is because there was a lot of police corruption in the city, the use of crack drugs, which led to a lot of violence and gangs. But after the mid-90s, you have a improvement for crime rates going down because of the police chief that was sworn in, and he really got a lot of that corruption out of the police. And so going back to Michael and his family being interviewed, the really sad thing, or what I thought was really sad other than the deaths themselves, was that Michael was planning to leave in March of 1997, so just a few months after the murder took place. And he was planning on going to California to, I guess, live with a friend. But he said that he wanted to stay for one more Mardi Gras. And it's just, really sad because the innocence, when you can look at New Orleans and value all the positive there is to offer, but yet there's so much violence and negative things that come with that. So to me, that was really dark. But I really enjoyed learning more about this. I got this information from the case file that was online, as well as a couple of other articles. So I look forward to exploring another crime, getting to know it, getting familiar with the city, and I hope you enjoyed it.